I never thought I'd find purpose in my unexpected life as a eunuch. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My world crumbled into 1,000 sharp pieces, each one a reminder of what used to be. The sterile smell of antiseptic still clung to the air, mixing with the faint scent of fear. I stood in the dimly lit hospital room, trembling hands gripping the cold edge of the metal bed. My heart pounded violently in my chest, like a war drum, echoing the chaos behind my eyes. They had told me it was for the best, a necessary sacrifice. But as the doctor's words echoed in my ears, I couldn't shake the panic creeping into my soul. My life had been a roller coaster of highs and unfathomable lows, and this felt like the end. The silence in that room was suffocating. I could hear the distant beep of machines, the quiet rustle of nurses outside. But all I could feel was the weight of loss crashing down on me. My mother had been my rock. I could hear her soothing voice, promising me that everything would be okay. But she wasn't here now. I felt adrift, a ship lost at sea, and the waves were pulling me under. Friends tried to comfort me, but it was all empty platitudes. I caught their sideways glances, the pity pooling in their eyes. They didn't understand. They whispered behind closed doors, speculating and judging. I was becoming a curiosity, a tragic story told over cups of coffee that I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight against the tide dragging me down. But I felt powerless. Every fiber of my being was torn between grief and anger. And as realization washed over me, I wondered if I would ever find my way back to the surface. What could I become now? My purpose felt lost, obliterated. But deep inside, a flicker of something caught fire. A defiance? A determination? Could this new life hold meaning? Would I emerge not just as a survivor, but as something more? Just then, I heard the soft click of the door. A shadow appeared, familiar yet distant. It was my best friend, Jamie. Her eyes filled with worry and compassion. I knew she would bring more confusion and pain. But in that moment, the air thickened with unspoken words. What secrets lingered just beneath the surface of our wavering friendship? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jamie stepped into the room, a hesitant smile barely masking the concern etching her features. The aura of her presence was like a soft blanket thrown over a brittle landscape. It could provide warmth, but it could also suffocate. I caught a glimpse of her tightly clasped hands, and I forced myself to breathe, even as the dread knotted in my stomach. Hey, she said softly, her voice encased in a layer of vulnerability that made my walls tremble. I came as soon as I could. How are you holding up? A million things swirled in my mind, battling for release, but not a single word found its way out. Instead, I feebly shrugged, desperate to convey how lost I felt, yet paralyzed by the weight of my own shame. The truth was, I didn't know how to answer that question anymore. I was no longer a person defined by clarity. I was an echo of all that had been and a ghost of what was to come. Jamie moved closer, her fingers reaching out to touch mine, a fragile connection anchoring me in the chaos. I've been so worried, she admitted, her voice trembling. You've always been the strong one, but it's okay to not be okay. The tears blurred my vision as her honesty cracked open a wound I thought was already too raw to feel. A wave of anger washed over me, not at her, but at the entire situation. How dare she say it was okay to be vulnerable? I had always been the stoic one, the fortress that never crumbled. But the moment her words hit me, I felt the facade fade, and grief poured in like a torrential rain, filling every crevice of my soul. What am I supposed to do now, Jamie? My voice broke, shattering the silence like glass. This isn't me. I don't recognize myself anymore. She was silent for a moment, absorbing the weight of my despair. You have to find a way to reclaim who you are. Not who you were before, but who you can still become, she encouraged, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that ignited something deep within me. I wrestled with her words, caught between wanting to believe in resilience and succumbing to the comforting embrace of despair. Just when I thought I might crumble again, a flicker of gratitude illuminated my heart. Here she was, refusing to let me drown, her kindness a lifeline in the tumultuous sea of my emotions. But just as hope started to trespass the walls of my desolation, a shrill beep from the monitor startled us. I glanced over at the display, feeling the panic rise. My heart raced. Was I slipping away again? Did this fragile moment of reprieve signify deeper troubles ahead? Jamie tightened her grip on my hand, grounding me back to the present. Moments later, a nurse entered, her expression grave. "We need to run some tests, and I need you to stay calm," she stated matter-of-factly. I felt the air thicken with dread as she prepared to take another round of blood. An anticipation hung in the air like an unwelcome guest, reminding me that pain had not yet finished its torment. Once the nurse left, I sat quietly, trying to marinate in Jamie's comforting aura, yet my mind raced with possibilities. What if the tests revealed deeper issues? What if my body was betraying me in ways I hadn't even anticipated? I wanted to be brave, to stand tall against the storm, but the tides of uncertainty loomed larger than life itself. That I am scared, Jamie, I finally admitted, the admission splintering the veil of toughness I'd clung to for so long. What if I never find my purpose? Her gaze softened, and I could see the weight of my confession resonate within her. You know that discovering purpose can mean embracing our flaws and fears, she replied gently. We're often in the darkest places before the light breaks through. Hope flickered again, a fragile ember lighting against the darkness. Yet just as quickly, the door swung open and in rushed a solemn doctor. His eyes held a grave seriousness that twisted my gut into knots. "We need to talk about your test results." That I end that moment. The ember glowed dimly, threatened by the shadows closing in. I glanced at Jamie, my heart racing at the impending revelation. No matter how much we hoped for light, the fear of total darkness loomed omnipresent, ready to engulf me whole. As the doctor's lips began to move, I braced for impact, my heart pounding on the precipice of uncertainty. The doctor's voice was a distant echo, a muffled sound drifting through the uncertainty that hung heavily in the air. My world spun on a disorienting axis as I gripped Jamie's hand tighter, feeling the warmth radiate from her skin in stark contrast to the cold dread pooling inside me. "What is it?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. "What did the test show?" He hesitated, his gaze shifting from me to Jamie, who stood her ground beside me, unwavering despite the palpable tension. "There are some irregularities," he said finally. "We need to discuss your options." Options? The word felt inadequate, a flimsy shield against the reality crashing in. My mind raced with the implications. What could he mean? Was I facing a chronic condition? A choice that would forever ripple through my life? Before I could ask, Jamie's grip tightened, as if she could physically shield me from the reality that was gathering like a storm. "What does this mean for us? For her?" she demanded, her voice steady, yet I could sense the tremor beneath the surface. The doctor's brow furrowed, and for the first time, I noticed the sympathetic glint in his eyes. "I can't give you all the answers right now, but we'll need further tests to understand the full scope of what's happening. I want to reassure you that we're here to support you every step of the way." Support. The word hummed through the air, clashing with the whirlpool of darkness gnawing at my insides. Yet, beneath the tumult, Jamie's steady presence was a quiet lighthouse, pushing back the storm. As the doctor left the room, I leaned back against the wall, the reality of the situation settling heavily on my chest. "What if it's bad, Jamie?" I asked, the tremor in my voice betraying the iron resolve I sought to maintain. "What if everything I've been running from catches up to me?" In a moment of unexpected clarity, she moved closer, cupping my face gently in her hands, her touch a balm to my fraying nerves. "You're not defined by what you fear," she said, her voice soothing yet firm. We're defined by how we choose to face it. You're not alone in this. I searched her eyes, desperately wanting to grasp the strength she offered. In the depth of her gaze, I could sense the power of resilience, but fear, insidious and relentless, gnawed at the corners of my hope. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to rise above this chaos, soar beyond the pain. But every fearful whisper echoed around me. What if I still stumbled, still fell apart? What if the parts of myself I was struggling to reclaim were shattered beyond repair? You're right, I whispered, grappling with the uncertainty. But this journey feels so endless. Sometimes I fear the end is the only way out. Her eyes flickered with concern. Life is unpredictable. You've taught me that. But remember, even in the darkest hours, we can find connection and purpose in the simplest moments. As if summoned by her words, in that very moment, the door swung open once again, this time revealing a vibrant nurse holding a tray laden with colorful treats, brightening the dim room with her presence. I thought you could use a pick-me-up, she declared, flashing a warm smile, her cheerful spirit a breath of fresh air. Jamie and I exchanged a surprised glance, momentarily lifting the heavy spirits that had settled within us. The nurse instinctively began to divide the array of sweets, offering us each a small token of kindness. Take these, she insisted, and remember that small joys are scattered all around, even in tough times. I accepted a candy, the sweet burst of flavor igniting dormant sensations in my heart. For a fleeting moment, I felt light, a reminder that even amidst chaos and despair, life still offered small gestures of hope. Yet that warmth faded as quickly as it appeared when the nurse glanced down at her watch and stated, "I'm so sorry, but I have to leave for my shift. I really hope you start to feel better soon." The flicker of kindness was doused as the door closed behind her. Jamie met my gaze, and we shared an understanding moment encapsulated between us. Her eyes asked the question neither of us dared voice. Was that nurse just a beacon, or were we clinging to something fleeting, an illusion in the face of an uncertain future? As the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, I felt a chilling doubt wrap around me. What if this moment was just a temporary reprieve, the calm before a greater tempest? Jamie, I stuttered, fighting the new tide of emotions surging within me. What if I'm never free of this? What if I can never find purpose? And just as those words left my lips, the monitors blared a frantic alert, the sirens drowning out my thoughts, plunging us both back into the chaos. My heart raced, reality fracturing around me once more as doctors rushed into the room, a wave of urgency swallowing me whole. I tightened my grip on Jamie's hand, fear coursing through my veins, the darkness threatening to reclaim its territory. Not again, I whispered, clinging to the last tendrils of hope even as the shadows loomed closer, ready to engulf what little light remained. The chaos erupted around us, doctors and nurses spilling into the room, their faces a flurry of concern and quick efficiency, a storm of professionalism shrouded in urgency. I felt myself being swept away, the sensation of time unraveling as words were exchanged, instructions barked, and equipment wheeled in. Jamie's grip on my hand was my only anchor, a lifeline in a roiling sea. "Stay with me," she murmured. Her eyes locked onto mine as if she could ground me amidst the whirlwind. A sharp pain echoed through my chest, not only from the tension but from something deep, a fear that reality was slipping just beyond my reach. The cacophony faded slightly as I became hyper-aware of Jamie beside me. In the chaos, her presence glimmered like a beacon, a reminder that even amid the most tumultuous storms, unity could provide solace. "I'm right here," I whispered, struggling to maintain my composure despite the rising tide of anxiety. But the world around us was a blur. I could barely catch snippets of conversation, vague updates that melded into white noise. Just behind the curtain that divided my fears from the hope I barely recognized, something heavy was brewing, an undercurrent of dread that coursed through me like ice. In the midst of the tumult, the oppressive weight of fate bore down upon me. The crackling tension between despair and hope drew tighter, each passing moment amplifying the uncertainty that had taken root in my stomach. I squeezed Jamie's hand, trying to pour every ounce of strength I could muster into that small gesture. It was our shared defiance against the encroaching clouds, and then, for a brief moment, a wave of calm washed over the room as one of the doctors turned toward us. A hint of control restored as he focused on me. "We believe it's just a minor complication, but we need to run some further tests immediately," he explained, the calm authority in his tone cutting through the panic. "A complication?" I echoed, my heart thudding unevenly. Jamie's voice broke through, her insistence bolstering my faltering resolve. "What does that mean for the tests we already did?" "It means we need more data to clarify the situation," the doctor replied, his eyes searching mine for understanding. "I know it's overwhelming, but I assure you, we're doing everything we can." Every word was a lifeline, yet the specter of uncertainty stretched before me, threatening to engulf the small glimmers of light I desperately clung to. What if the complications weren't minor? What if this was just the beginning of an unfathomable journey? The questions raged within me like a fierce storm battling to break free. Suddenly, amidst the whirlwind, I thought back to the nurse's cheerful spirit, her warm smile cutting through the gloom. Each candy enjoyed seemed like a bright moment, a fragment of joy in an ocean of turmoil. The realization sparked in Memabe there was strength to be found in acknowledging the small flickers of happiness, breathing life into my bones even as darkness loomed overhead. But as those thoughts surged, the alarms continued to shriek, a relentless reminder that I was not entirely free. Just as swiftly as calm had settled, I felt the ground shift again. The door crashed open, this time revealing another figure, a stern-looking administrator who had entered unbidden. "Excuse me," she said, cutting through the room's disarray. "We need to clear the area for a transfer. Patient needs immediate intervention. We can't afford any delays." My heart sank. "Transfer? Where?" My voice rose in pitch, tinged with panic. I felt the walls of my reality closing in. What kind of fate awaited me beyond these walls? "Stabilization unit," she replied brusquely, already motioning to the team around me. "We need to move quickly, this isn't negotiable." In that moment, Jamie's grip faltered. Her expression transformed from one of steadfast support to raw alarm. "Wait," she shouted, a fervor rising in her voice. "You can't just take her like that. She deserves to know what's happening." My heart raced, a frantic rhythm harmonizing with the alarms, and I felt the fabric of our connection being tugged apart. "I don't want to go anywhere without you, Jamie. Please." The words tumbled out, a plea that echoed in the air as I was slowly wheeled away toward the door, Jamie's desperate gaze trailing behind me. "Stay strong," she called, her voice reaching out like a lifeline in the tumult. Yet that too felt like a thread pulled too thin, stretching, warping, fraying. Just before I crossed the threshold, the administrator turned back. "Well, update her when we can. Just trust the process," she said curtly, her words settling like lead in my gut. My last view of Jamie was painted with war-Ryan emotion painted starkly across her face, etched in the lines that marked her brow. I felt each inch of distance structured between us, a chasm I couldn't cross. As I surrendered to the routine of the hospital, a relentless quiet rose within me, the fear that began to claw and burrow beneath my skin. What lay ahead? Would I find clarity beyond this movement, or would fear and uncertainty grip me tighter in the unknown? As they wheeled me through stark corridors filled with bustling figures, my heart thumped in my chest, a muted reminder of each breath I took. I could feel the walls closing in around me, a cave of secrets prepared to swallow me whole. The path before me felt endless, and with each passing moment, purpose felt like a ghost, one that danced just out of reach, teasing and taunting me in the darkness. And then, just as I was led into the chamber that promised answers, the air crackled with an unexpected pausi, sudden flicker of danger that brushed against my skin. Then my heart plummeted as I heard that familiar voice, one that echoed with the clout of regret and longing. "What are you doing here?" It was a shadow from the past that had once been exiled, a whisper that threatened to unravel every bit of resilience I had fought to maintain. The sterile walls around me seemed to constrict as the weight of the voice pressed heavily on my chest. It had been years since I last saw him, the bitter remnants of our relationship still gnawing at the edges of my memory. I didn't want to face him now, Not when everything felt so precarious. Not when I was on the brink of something that could tip over into catastrophe. "What are you doing here?" I repeated, the tremor in my voice betraying the storm brewing inside me. I didn't need the reminder of our past, especially not now. "Look, I know this isn't the time," Jay said, stepping closer. His expression was a mixture of concern and regret, a potent blend that made my skin crawl in both recognition and resistance. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important. I tried to focus on the team surrounding me, the doctors preparing for the procedure. But that voice persisted like an echo in a vast canyon, growing louder and more invasive. The urgency in my body surged with adrenaline. The fight-or-flight response surged unbidden, piercing through the fog of my confusion. Just go away," I said, though it sounded more like a gasping plea than a command. My heart raced as I caught glimpses of the doctors exchanging looks, the room twinging with tension that had nothing to do with my condition, and everything to do with the air thickening with unsaid words. "I can't do that," he insisted. "I know things have been difficult between us, but I need you to listen. It's really important." Somewhere beneath my rising dread, a small part of me yearned for the connection, for someone who could understand the labyrinth of pain and confusion I was navigating. But I quashed that thought. It was too dangerous, especially at a moment when I reached for anything solid, anything comforting. "Why now?" I snapped, grief and bitterness leaking through. "After everything that happened, why would you show your face nowhere?" "I already told you it's urgent." Jay's frustration was palpable, the desperation behind his eyes genuine and disarming. "You don't know what you're getting into. I need to warn you." The tension escalated as the medical team began their pre-procedure checklist. I could sense their impatience, but the emotional tempest swirling with Jay threatened to pull me under. "I don't care. I don't need your warnings, Jay. I just need them to help me," I retorted, my heart racing from the conflicting emotions of bitterness and vulnerability. Jay took a breath, stepping even closer despite the backdrop of impending treatment. "This isn't about your treatment." His voice dropped, urgency creeping into his tone. "You need to know they're not just professionals in scrubs. There are things happening here that you don't understand. I'm not here to make amends. I'm here because I care and because I don't want you to get hurt." My voice caught in my throat as denial clawed at me. I didn't want to believe him. I didn't want to entertain the thought that everything I had trusted could turn sinister. But that knot in my stomach twisted tighter, a barbed reminder of the shadows of the past. "This isn't about us. Just let me go." With mounting tension, the doctor cleared his throat, grasping my attention. "We need to start if you're ready," he said, eyes darting between Jay and me. The finality in his tone felt like a dare, an ultimatum born from urgency as the tension thickened. But Jay stepped forward, his eyes aflame with a genuine fire I hadn't seen in a long time. "You can't let them do this. You don't know what you're walking into." The frantic plea made my heart ache, reminding me of the boy I once knew, the one who had fought for me, the one who loved fiercely but also left wounds that ran deep. "Jay, please," I tried to soften my voice, uncertain of my own feelings. The fear that curdled in my gut tangled with the faint flickers of hope. The heart that once beat alongside his seemed to pulse in half-forgotten rhythms. Suddenly, alarms blared, filling the room with a cacophony that drowned out our words. Everyone surged into action, my body becoming an afterthought amidst the whirlwind. The doctor's movements were swift and choreographed, but I was rooted in confusion, the reality crumbling beneath me. Just then, in the midst of the chaos of my external world, a semblance of clarity pierced through the storm. Maybe part of the problem was that I had retreated too far into my own sphere of trauma, focusing on the ache and neglecting those who still stood by me even if it was in a complicated way. "Look at me," Jay said, gripping my arm as the chaos thundered around us. "Just listen, please. You have the power to walk away from this if you choose." An unsettling jolt surged through me, blending dread and intrigue. There was a vulnerability in his eyes that crackled with sincerity. "What do you mean?" But before he could respond, everything around me spiraled. The nurses shouted sharp orders, the doctor's eyes were wide with alarm, and suddenly, I was being wheeled away into the dim light of the corridor, distancing myself from Jay and the choice he offered, the truth that felt like a cloak of darkness billowing around me as I disappeared around the corner. I caught one last glimpse of Jay's anguished face, a reflection of desperation reaching out toward me, stretching for an understanding that felt lost forever. The world spun wildly, and just when I thought I could breathe, the curves of the passageway opened into a broader space, and my eyes caught something unexpected, a wall lined with photographs, their faces smiling back at me, familiar and cold, igniting an ache I hadn't prepared for. One particular image stopped me cold. A glimpse into a history I thought I'd buried, a snapshot of the laughter I once shared with Jamie before all the turbulence began. In that moment, the earth beneath me trembled. As the realization sank in, I felt my heart stall. What had I been blind to in all my fear? What twists of fate awaited me beyond this moment? In that unexpected flash of connection, one idea crystallized amidst the turmoil. I had the power to write my own story. But was I prepared for what truth would demand of me? And then, I heard a commotion behind me, a scene of chaos erupting once more, pulling the veil away from the serenity of complacence, leaving me with a haunting unease that echoed unanswered. My world felt inexorably unraveling, yet hope flickered dimly in the corners of pain, waiting for me to embrace its direction. But the choice was looming, sculpted by shadows I had failed to recognize until now. The sharp scent of antiseptic in the corridor stung my nostrils, mingling with the stale air that felt heavy, full of unsaid words and unacknowledged fears. I stood frozen in front of the photograph wall, a portal to another time, another me. My fingers lightly traced the edges of the frame, hesitant, as if the act itself might unleash a torrent I could no longer contain. The laughter frozen in that moment, Jamie's bright smile beside mine invoked a pang of grief that felt insurmountable. I remembered the buoyancy of friendship I once basked in, the thrill of shared secrets under starlit skies. How had it slipped through my fingers so easily? The vibrant colors of that moment faded against the backdrop of my current reality, where shadows loomed, threatening to extinguish whatever spark still flickered inside. "Where did you go?" I whispered, the words escaping my lips unbidden, a question echoing into the emptiness. I wanted Jamie to answer, to tell me how to navigate this twisted labyrinth of pain. The sudden surge of activity behind me drew my attention back to the present. The frantic energy of the staff filled the air, clashing against my desire for stillness. Someone shouted for more staff, while another ushered a patient away on a gurney, as chaos unfolded before me like a tapestry unraveling at the seams. "Sign this form immediately." A nurse thrust a clipboard toward a man whose gaze darted around the hall, eyes wide with sheer terror. "Is it too late?" he asked, his voice layered with desperation. "I can't let them." I turned away, unable to bear the sight of another tortured soul on the precipice of abandoning hope. My own impending treatment weighed on me like a stone. Yet that glimmer, that whisper of possibility, had ignited something within me that refused to be extinguished. "Are you okay?" A soft voice broke through the clamor. I turned to find a young nurse, her expression one of genuine concern. Her name tag read Ella. There was warmth in her eyes, something untouched and true that momentarily disarmed me. "I am not sure," I stuttered, grappling with everything that had just transpired, the chaotic rush and Jay's warning, the potent connection to Jamie that lingered unwelcome. "You seem lost," she noted, an understanding floating between us. No frills, just a candid acknowledgement of unspoken stories. "It's okay not to know. But your choice is still yours to make." "Choice," I echoed, the word tasting foreign on my tongue. Choice had been stolen from me once, and the confounding storm of emotions I felt now was muddied by the shadows of a past that still gripped tightly. "Yes," Ella affirmed, stepping closer. "People overlook it in moments like this because it's easier to let others dictate the course. But you have the right to advocate for yourself." I caught a faint smile on her lips, an unexpected spark amidst my burgeoning despair. "What if I don't know what to choose?" "Then learn. We're here to help you. You don't have to have all the answers now." Her confidence hung in the air, a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters, and I grasped at it foolishly. In her presence, a flicker of warmth ignited in meth stirrings of a resolve I had thought extinguished. I focused on her piercing gaze, weighing the gravity of her words. "What if I decide to walk away?" Then you'll have the freedom to chart your own course, no matter how unconventional it may seem to others. Her words echoed in my mind, turning the gears of possibility that had frozen under layers of pain and fear. What would it take to truly reclaim my voice in this chaotic world? Just as I was poised to respond, the air shifted. A wave of severity swept through the corridor. Several figures in scrubs rushed past, their faces marked by intensity, eyes locked on a far-off urgency. A voice rang out, shattering the calm. Get the equipment. We need to act now. I felt a chill race down my spine, tensing at the implications hidden behind those hurried movements. What was happening? I glanced toward the gurney being wheeled out, covered in a sheet, and the unfamiliar pang of dread welled within. Something raw and unyielding clawed at my insides. Wait, I called out, the words escaping before I could question that need. Someone paused, eyes narrowing on me, uncertainty mingling with the chaos around us. Ella remained at my side, sensing my growing apprehension. Are you okay? She asked softly, removing her hand from the clipboard she carried. Turning her focus to me alone, I opened my mouth to answer, still wrestling with my own rising fear, when a sudden voice interrupted a shout that broke through the maelstrom. No, I can't let you take him. He isn't a guinea pig. My heart dropped as I turned in the direction of the commotion. A familiar figure stood silhouetted against the harsh fluorescent lights, a mother's ragged silhouette, engulfed by despair as she fought against the nurses, shaking with anger. Mom? The single word escaped my lips, barely a whisper, the last vestiges of self-preservation evaporating. The shock of seeing her storming into my life again ripped through me like shrapnel. The world around me came to a standstill. All the chaos faded into a distant echo, leaving just the unraveling truth. With that one sighting, the darkness I had been grappling with swelled and shifted me family. My choices, my past had come crashing down around me anew, unveiling hidden layers of conflict I had been blind to. I'll do anything to stop this, she shouted, clinging to the gurney, her eyes wild with terror. I won't let them take him. Not like this. And just like that, I felt the friction of my heart against a wall of impending choices, both suffocating and expansive. Could I still find a purpose in a life tangled in the remnants of chaos surrounding me? In this unexpected union of truth and turmoil, would I leap into the unknown, or remain tethered to an unrelenting past? The air thickened once more, the harsh reality closing in, leaving me on the edge of revelation, teetering toward a choice that had never felt more defining. The din of the hospital corridor swirled around me, a cacophony of emotions that mirrored the tumult within my chest. My mother's figure loomed large, her desperation a beacon that drew me in, beckoning with an urgency that threatened to shatter the fragile shell I had encased myself in. I had spent so long building a barrier to protect myself from pain, but with her there, it felt as if the walls were beginning to crumple, revealing all the jagged edges I thought I had left behind. Mom, stop, I shouted, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess myself. The weight of their meaning hung heavy in the air, stretching the already taut fabric of the moment. Her head whipped around, eyes narrowing on me, shock and disbelief contorting her features. Why are you here? She demanded, her voice throbbing with the weight of years spent apart, bickering over whose choices had led us to this moment. You shouldn't be here. You need to focus on yourself. Don't you get it? I replied, a mixture of anger and longing igniting within me. I can't focus on myself when you're here, caught in the storm. Why can't you see that? My heart raced, my world collapsing and expanding all at once, each beat echoing with unspoken fears and shared history. Because I can't lose you again. Her voice cracked with the force of her emotion, the resolute front falling away as vulnerability poured forth. In that raw moment, all the years of misunderstanding, blame, and unarticulated love surged forward, threatening to drown us both. A group of nurses surged past, trying to pull her away, but I stepped forward, unwavering. She's not just some bystander, I asserted to them, my voice steadier than I felt. She's my mother. Behind me, I sensed Ella's quiet presence, grounding and supportive, as my mother's gaze locked onto mine. We were both suspended in a moment, the gravity of it palpable. "You think this will help me?" she murmured, pain seeping into the cracks of her words. "I'm trying to protect you. They'll use you just like they used your father." Stop. My shout reverberated through the corridor and startled even me. Each syllable resonated with a truth I had long avoided confronting. "You don't get to use him against me. I'm not that scared little kid anymore. I can make choices." The mention of my father hung in the air, a specter haunting us both. With each passing second, the tension thickened, becoming a living thing that stitched our fates closer together, but also threatened to burst apart the fragile foundation we had both clung to. Making choices, my mother trailed off, her fists clenching at her sides, uncertainty flickering across her features. "The last time I was here, I thought I was doing what was best for you. But I never knew, never understood." A shadow loomed over us. "Excuse me," a doctor interjected, his brow furrowing with concern. "We need to move forward. There's no time to debate this." I turned to face him, tension radiating from my body, but something caught my eye. A young boy, pale and frail, in a nearby bed, with a nurse soothing him. There was a tenderness in that interaction that struck me like a lightning bolt, a reminder of what it felt like not to carry this burden alone. An instinct to protect surged within me, overwhelming my fear. "Wait." I stepped forward, my heart hammering. "What if I don't want to go through this treatment? What if I choose to leave?" The faces around me turned, a mixture of shock and concern clouding their features. Ella's eyes widened, a hint of alarm etched upon her brow. "You can't just walk away without thinking of the consequences," she cautioned gently. "I have to consider what I want, not what everyone else thinks I should want," I replied, a surge of defiance coursing through me. No more would I be pulled along by the currents of others' decisions. I've been running from the truth for too long, and maybe that truth is what's best for me isn't what I've always been told. In that moment of clarity, an unexpected warmth blossomed in my chest, flickering like a candle in the dark. My mother's eyes softened. "You're right. I was only trying to protect you. I don't want to lose you again," she confessed, her voice trembling, suffused with remorse. "You already did," I replied softly, but instead of anger, I felt an inexplicable sense of hope rising alongside the bittersweet sting of remembrance. "But maybe we can find our way back. Together?" Amid this tempest of emotions, I felt the shadow of an even larger decision looming. Could I truly stand firm in my truth and let the past unravel? Or would the tides pull me back into the depths of despair? The doctor spoke again, urgency coloring his tone. "Time is running out. We need an answer. Will you proceed with the treatment, or won't you?" Every heartbeat seemed to halt as I stared into my mother's eyes, the unsaid hovering like fog between us. I could see a life unfurling ahead of me, full of resilience and life, yet the shadows of what was and what could be loomed large. The word lodged in my throat, a beacon of possibility veiled by layers of fear and uncertainty. My mother, so close, and yet so far, waited with bated breath, while the weight of this decision hung heavy in the air, teetering upon the precipice of my very being. And then, a silence fell. A moment pregnant with the promise of both hope and despair, leading me toward a future I had never anticipated, where each choice felt monumental as I stood on the brink of a different kind of battle, uncertain yet steadfast. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, their steady hum layering an anxious background as the moment stretched on. I felt it pressing against my chest, a tangible force that matched the tempest of thoughts racing through my mind. The doctor stood before us, waiting with an outstretched hand and an expectant gaze, poised to guide me towards a decision that felt more monumental than any I had faced before. I choked on the word, feeling its weight collapse under the pressure of implications it bore. Each option felt like a door swinging open to different futures, and dread settled into my bones as snippets of my past volleyed like a ping-pong match in my mind. Would choosing treatment mean confronting everything I had kept at arm's length? My father's ghost whispered caution, echoing my mother's fears. But was there strength in choosing to fight for both of us? My mother's grip on reality had faltered long ago, but now, Her trembling hands gripped many an anchor tethering me to the moment, yet deepening the chasm of uncertainty looming between us. As sorrow washed over her features, I gleaned a glimpse of what I truly wanted. Not just healing for myself, but a way to restore the tenuous bond between us. Was I strong enough to embrace that? "Please don't," she murmured, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Not again. Not like him." The rawness of her fear washed over me like a wave, something akin to desperation sparking behind her eyes. I couldn't let her drown in the darkness of her past. But could I muster the courage to step into the unknown for both of us? "Mom, I have to make my own choices," I implored softly, my voice quaking but resolute. "I need you to trust me." And perhaps, in that moment, it was not just a plea for validation. It was a lifeline extended to both of us. But I felt more fragile than I had in years, teetering on the precipice of making what felt like a life-altering choice. Ella's hand slipped into mine, her warmth a gentle reminder that love often arrived dressed as support. "No matter what you choose, I'm here with you," she said, her voice a steady current amidst the chaos. I dug deep, grasping for something buried beneath my layers of fear and resentment. This decision wasn't just about treatment or the scars of our history. It was about facing the raw, aching truth of being human, entwined in life's chaotic web. "Let's go ahead," I finally managed, releasing a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The words tumbled from my lips, firm and unyielding, yet laced with uncertainty. "Are you sure?" The doctor's brows crinkled in concern, the gravity of my choice hanging like a fragile crystal in midair. "Once you begin, there's no going back, that I am sure." I nodded, still feeling my mother's grip tighten around my hand. "This is what I want. It's not just for me, it's for us." I offered her a small smile, a flicker of hope igniting between us. But wasn't hope fragile, too beautiful and terrible in its delicacy? And then, the gravity of my choice shifted when a deafening alarm blared through the corridor. A sense of calamity swept over the staff, their faces drawn tight with urgency. "Code Blue, room 204. A voice crackled over the intercom, sending shivers racing down my spine. What had I walked into? A swirl of tumult erupted around us as medical personnel burst past into the room of the frail boy I had seen earlier. My heart sank, the tantalizing thread of dread weaving its way back into the fabric of my resolve. Life could pivot in an instant, I thought, clutching my mother's hands tighter as I processed this unexpected chaos. The dichotomy of healing and despair was a raw reminder of how fragile our existence remained. "We should go," Ella urged gently, leading me toward an alcove out of the wandering gaze of those rushing to save a life. "The doctors will handle it." But I couldn't go. The boy's frightened eyes flashed through my mind, a mirror reflecting my own fear and unknowing. For a brief moment, I had seen kindness between him and the nurse. It had reminded me that humanity resides even in the direst situations. "I need to stay," I said, my voice small but hardened with conviction. This was where my choice mattered. Here, now, amidst the chaos, I could be only a small light to someone who might feel lost and alone. My mother's worried gaze searched mine, her concern etched across her features like a dark cloud consuming the sun. "Please," she implored. "You don't have to do this. I want to," I replied, catching Ella's reassuring smile in my periphery. "I can't turn my back, no more running. Not this time." But as I stood, the echo of my mother's whisper reached out beyond the clamor. "Promise me you won't get lost whatever happens." Her words hung in the air, a tether pulling at the strands of my resolve. Could I keep my purpose while navigating the emotional labyrinth around me, especially if loss beckoned at every turn? And just as clarity began to settle like a blanket over my racing heart, the echo of my own voice rang against the walls of my mind, and uncertainty coiled tightly within me. This war was far from over, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown to something I could neither comprehend nor anticipate. The sirens faded, but they left behind the haunting reminder of choice, wrapped in the fragile thread of hope. Just as the world swirled in chaos, one thing remained absolute: I was vulnerable, standing on the edge of growth and grief. But somehow, I knew it was here, in these moments of uncertainty, that I would discover not just the purpose I sought, but a way to navigate the fragile dance of unexpected life. And before I could fully comprehend the extent of my bold choice, the double doors swung open, and in strode a young woman, tears streaming down her face. "Is there a Daniel here?" she cried, her voice breaking, heavy with panic. My heart raced anew, sensing the somber gravity of her arrival, and just like that, the horizon of our intertwined stories shifted once more, unveiling the unknown. The commotion around us intensified, but within the chaos, I felt every heartbeat resonate in a chamber of solitude. The woman's eyes, wide and frantic, locked onto mine as she searched the gathered crowd for anyone who could understand her urgency. My mother's grip slackened just a fraction, but fear mirrored in her gaze told me she too felt the weight of the moment. "Please, I need to find Himmy brother," she gasped, each word laced with anguish. I swallowed hard as snapshots of my fleeting fears darted through my mind, each pulse a reminder of how precarious life truly was. "Daniel," I responded, a prodigious rush dispersing through my veins, born of concern and instinct. With every step I took toward her, I felt the stakes elevate, the weight on my shoulders shifting to accommodate this new chapter of collective worry. Her breath hitched, a fragile hope clinging to her like the faintest thread. "I can't lose him," she pleaded, words tumbling into the sterile air, desperate and fractured. "He's all I have." They said he's not responding. A sickly swirl of dread lodged itself within me as I recalled the frail boy whose eyes had mirrored my own fears just moments before. I stepped closer, feeling the hot rush of vulnerability weaving itself into the fabric of our connection. "What's his name?" "Oliver," she replied, the syllables trembling on her lips like leaves rustling in the winter wind. "He's 10 and he just wanted to play soccer. He didn't have to come here. I thought we were done with this." The panorama of her emotions cracked open the jitters within my chest, exposing deeper fears I had left untouched. I could feel the lifeline between us stretch tighter, woven with fragility yet fueled by strength. "Come with me," I urged, noting the wavering determination in her eyes. "They'll help him. They have to." The urgency in her face flickered with a flicker of belief, and together we pressed toward the commotion, our pace quickening as we joined the throng of anxious faces filtering into the adjacent waiting area. Each step echoed like the beating drum of uncertainty. I was terrified. Yet here was my chance to tangibly grasp at the threads of purpose swirling around me. As we reached the threshold of the room, I could see the flurry of motion with Ina crash cart poised like a sentinel of hope, the medical personnel marshaled with the kind of deliberate swift urgency that felt electric, as if they were channeling life itself. But behind the steely focus, I saw the stark, palpable fear that colored their faces. Moments felt elastic, suspended between hope and despair, as the reality danced ever so perilously close to the precipice of loss. "Can we go in?" Oliver's sister's voice quivered like a candle flickering in a tempest. But the nurse stationed at the doorway barred our entry. "I'm sorry, but you'll have to wait here." The nurse's voice tried to offer reassurance, yet it was laden with the gravity of what was taking place just beyond our reach. Tension knotted in my stomach, but in that instant, I was reminded of why I had chosen to stand and face this mission of compassion. "No," I insisted, my voice trembling with defiance. "We can't just stand here. He needs us." The words felt like a mantra, born from a place deep within that yearned for connection beyond the stale walls of fear. Through the haze of uncertainty, I could see Oliver's sister's determination bloom anew with each heartbeat. "Let's pray," she said suddenly, her hands shaking yet firm, reaching for mine as though drawing strength from our connection. I nodded, closing my eyes as I joined her in that moment of raw intimacy, oblivious to the panic threatening to consume us. "Please, Oliver," she whispered, "you can't leave us. You're so strong, you've always fought." In her plea, I felt the resonance of every unspoken fear and hope binding us together. And then it happened, an echo in the distance. A voice I recognized. "Code Blue. We're losing him." The reality hit with a visceral jolt, grasping my heart and squeezing. My breath quickened, and for a moment, I felt unmoored, trapped in a realm where choice and fate intertwined. My heart swelled with a yearning to defy the odds, to stretch my own fragility into something greater. Ella stepped closer, her hand resting on my back, a subtle reminder that amidst the chaos, kindness could still bloom. You've made it this far, Daniel. You're not alone, it's okay to feel scared. But we fight for one another. As her warmth seeped into me, a new mission unfurled. You need to believe he can make it, I encouraged the girl beside me, gripping her hands tightly. We are the bearers of his hope right now. But even as I fought to implant confidence into our tangled fears, the atmosphere shifted with the sound of an alarm signaling disasters. The doors swung open, and in walked a doctor, his eyes grave and shadowed under the fluorescent lights, burdened with the weight of futures yet to be decided. He's the words constricted in his throat like a rope. Something was fraying, unraveling, not just his abilities, but the fabric of our entwined fates. Before I could comprehend the hints of what was coming next, he stepped forward, and in that moment, it felt as if time had slipped away. The line between hope and despair quivered precariously, confusing me with its magnitude. The fragile tapestry of our lives threatened to tear at the seams, the question lingering in the air like a whisper caught in the storm. Would our vulnerability finally bring light, or had we stepped into a storm we could never hope to weather? The waiting room felt like a cocoon, the silence wrapping around us, thick and heavy with unshed tears. I could still hear the frantic voices of the medical team, and each shout felt like an arrow shooting through my heart, embedding itself deep in fear. Oliver's sister gripped my hands like a lifeline, her knuckles white with tension as we held on to each other and, in turn, to the tenuous thread of hope. How had I, a moment ago, been so lost in my own trauma, so withdrawn from the chaos of others' pain? Momentum shifted like the tide, prompting me to move away from the storms of silence that once shrouded my world. This moment forced me to confront the essence of life itself, the fragility of existence, the fine line between despair and hope. Daniel? A voice broke through, steady yet grave. I recognized the doctor, his worn eyes betraying the weight of his day's work. Hope flickered in my chest, a candle struggling against a cold wind. "I'm here," I replied, voice steadying against a tide of uncertainty. The doctor's presence held a peculiar power, pulling us back into a realm of possibility. His gaze flickered between me and Oliver's sister before settling on the ground, as if searching for the words that could bridge their unearthly weight. There was a complication during the procedure. We need to discuss the options. The inevitability hung in the air, thrumming with dread. But before my mind could race ahead, Oliver's sister piped up, "What are the options?" Her clarity enveloped the moment, a stark reminder of resilience that cut through my own spiraling thoughts. "They're doing everything they can, but we need to prepare for any outcome," he explained, his voice trailing off, heavy with unspoken meanings. And then, like a dam that had burst beneath the pressure, the reality slammed back into meth, stark reminders of the fragility of our lives, of the inevitable truth that we were all just wanderers in search of purpose, of connection. "Prepare for what?" I demanded, feeling the urgency clawing at my throat. "You can't just leave us in limbo." The surge of frustration mingled with the fear, a potent cocktail that ignited a resilience within me I didn't know I had. Oliver's sister's voice trembled. "We won't let fear paralyze us. We need clarity." "Clarity," I echoed, the word resonating deeply within me. "We need to change our narrative together." Did I end that moment? Something within me shifted, a recognition of my personal struggles melding into the collective fight. The fire against fear kindling a sense of purpose in the midst of chaos. "Tell us how we can help," I urged, feeling the sense of connection sweep through the room. The doctor nodded, understanding igniting something in his eyes. "If you're willing, you can advocate for Oliver in this moment. We need to know his wishes if he can't voice them himself." The enormity of that declaration settled over us, a blanket woven with uncertainty and hope. If this journey was about reclaiming life, perhaps the power lay in the hands of those willing to step into the light beyond the shadows. Just as that fire within me blazed anew, a soft voice broke through my thoughts. It was Ella, returning to my side like a steadfast lighthouse guiding me through the darkness. "You can face this, Daniel," she whispered, her encouragement anchoring me. You are stronger than you know. Your voice matters. And just like that, the gravity of the moment reframed everything. The hurt, the missed opportunities with my own painful backstory began to evaporate as the insignificance of it all fell away. We're here for him deserves to know he's not alone in this fight. That it was the first true realization that gripped me. And I turned back to Oliver's sister, her eyes reflecting that same fierce determination. Let's do this together, I urged, all the complexity of our shared fears pivoting into a rush of united strength. He's not just a patient. He's a person, a broth-era life worth fighting for. Everything clicked into place. The importance of connection, of supporting one another, emerged like a beacon in the dark sea of uncertainty. We need him to know that we're here, I said, my own heart racing with acknowledgement. Oliver needs to hear us. We will rally for him. The doctor's eyes widened, recognizing the depth of our unified purpose. He took a deep breath. All right, we'll do everything we can. Let's go. In a whirlwind of energy, I felt the cadence of life stitch us back together, our threads woven tighter in the fabric of shared pain and hope. We stepped together toward a future that, while uncertain, glimmered with the possibility of a chance to rise above the darkness. Then, in a miraculous instant, a voice called out from the other side of the door, "Hold on. We've stabilized him. He's responding." The news rippled through the room, hope unfurling like petals in the sun, warm and vivid against the cold edges of despair. The tension which tangled in my chest unfurled into a joyful release. Tears brimmed in Oliver's sister's eyes as we soaked in that moment together. Beacons ignited once again. Had we really come full circle, bridging past and present? It was then that I understood. In the face of unspeakable odds, we held the strength to weave our fates together, rewrite stories even in the midst of chaos, embracing the beauty of vulnerability and forging ahead despite pain and loss. As we moved back toward our own lives, I realized something profound. I was not just a survivor of loss but a warrior for hope. Not just an isolated figure, but a collective heartbeat beneath the swells of life. And I chose to embrace it. And as I let that realization wash over me, sweeping away the remnants of doubt, I grasped once more the truth I had learned through every twist and turn, that maybe in the act of saving ourselves, we find the means to save each other. I smiled through my tears, a new purpose illuminating the path ahead, each breath heavier yet more vibrant, and I felt finally at peace. We were not lost. We were here, and I felt the warmth of purpose nestled in the fragility of life, now unwavering in my resolve. Together, I whispered, as the light snapped back into view, rekindling vibrant energy and hope that promised to linger long after the shadows took flight. With that, we stepped forward into the warmth of the next chapter, a promise of healing, hope, and connection that could never fade.